So I've been on close to 50 international trips, and the majority of them I've actually done alone, and I cannot recommend solo travel enough. My very first time solo traveling was quite a unique experience. I was very uncomfortable, I was a little bit nervous, but it ended up being the best experience I could have possibly had, and I ended up making a whole bunch of friends on the first day that are still my friends today. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 5 tips for solo travelers and share my story of my first time solo traveling as well. So number 1 is to consider staying in a hostel. Now me personally, I was never a hostel person. I don't want to sleep in a shared room or whatever, but this is a great way to meet people. What you need to know about hostels is not every room is a shared room. A lot of them you can also get private rooms. Not all hostels are like cheap, dingy, seedy kind of shithole places that you imagine. This behind me right here is a hostel. This is quite a nice one, and if you get the private rooms in there, you're still in an environment where there's lots of different people from different countries. The majority of them are solo traveling as well. So you get that opportunity to meet different people all the time in there. Most hostels have a little restaurant area or a bar down the bottom. A lot of them have rooftop bars, I'm pretty sure. This one has a rooftop bar, and if you've ever been to a hostel bar, they're a whole lot of fun. Sorry, 2 really cute girls walked past me and they were smiling at me as I was talking. I was in the Philippines just recently with Dan, and we spent one night in a hostel, and we got private rooms. You know, we didn't want to share rooms or anything. And while the room in that hostel was just so, but the environment within that hostel was awesome. We went up to the rooftop bar every night. We'd be just hanging out and meeting people. And you find, even if you're not a super outgoing person and it's harder for you to meet people, if you're in a hostel bar, people will also approach you. Most hostels have it's kind of like a tour guide type thing where there'll be people running the bar that get everyone engaged with each other. A lot of them have games, or they'll do a thing, you have to do a shot every hour on the hour, and it's complimentary from the bar. The hostels do these things to help people engage with each other. So as I said, even if you're not a hostel person, it's still something to consider. There's hostels of all different price ranges, and many of them with the private rooms, it is a great option. Now my first solo trip was actually not planned. It wasn't meant to be a solo trip. I was in Korea with a friend, and he was there. We were there for only a couple of days, and he got called back on work. He had to go, so he basically had to leave the country. And my first instinct was, oh my God, I'm in Korea, my first time being there, and it's a very intimidating country to be in by yourself for the first time. You know, English is a little bit of a struggle there sometimes, and I was really unsure of what I was going to do. You know, the idea even crossed my mind to leave or to go, but I decided to stay, and it ended up being the best experience I've ever had traveling. So the first day after he left, I pushed myself to go out and go to a bar, and it's weird to go to a bar by yourself. I'll talk more about this soon. It's definitely weird to do, but within the first few minutes of me being in the bar, just standing there by myself having a beer, someone came up to me and started up a conversation, and I told them what had happened, and he invited me over to his table, and I started making friends with all these people, and before I knew it, the whole rest of my trip was booked up. People were like, oh, you know, I'm free Thursday, come out with us, and we're doing this on Friday, so come here. So I met all these amazing people in one night, and it basically filled up the whole rest of my trip. A lot of those people are still my friends today. I ended up moving and living in Korea, if you know that story, and a lot of those people I stayed in touch with. So number 2 is to push yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Now it's weird. The first time you go to a bar or to like a major restaurant by yourself, it can be intimidating. You can feel uncomfortable. You might think people are going to be looking at you being in this restaurant by yourself, but guess what? No one cares about you. If you want to go to a bar, go. I definitely recommend going to bars once people have a couple of drinks in them, everyone loosens up, and it's much easier to get in conversations. I'll give you some tips on how to start conversations soon, but I do think the most important thing is to really just push yourself, get out of your comfort zone, and go have these experiences. Don't be limited by being there just because you think you're by yourself and people are going to look at you or judge you, or it's not going to happen. It's definitely something that gets easier and easier. You know, as I mentioned, it was weird for me the first time I went to a bar. Now I actually enjoy doing it. Back when I lived in Korea, I would often go out alone because I have better experiences when I go out alone, and you meet people, you end up on just random experiences from doing that. You know, I'd go out and end up in a karaoke room at 4 o'clock in the morning, then you're in some random restaurant doing shots at 7 o'clock in the morning, and this is when you have these like really memorable, well, if you can remember them, you have these really memorable experiences. So number 3 is to take public transport. Now, this can be challenging, it can be a little intimidating, especially when you go to, I remember the first time I took the subway in Korea. The Korea subway map is mental. I'll put it on the screen for you. But just about everywhere I've traveled to has English signs, and there's great technology now, Google Translate, you can live translate using the camera app in your phone, and there's always staff in these places that will be able to help you in English. So it's a great way to see the city. It's really rewarding once you figure it out too. And if you're by yourself and you don't have anywhere that you have to be at any certain time or anything, so what if you take the wrong train? It's kind of fun, it's kind of an experience, as long as it doesn't happen all the time, but one here and there is okay. I lived in Korea for nearly 3 years, and every now and then I'd still jump on the wrong train or get on at the wrong platform or whatever. But I do really recommend doing this. Taking taxis everywhere is not a great way to see the city. It's fun taking the subway and trying these new things and really exploring a city. So number 4 comes along with pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone, and that's to talk to people, strike up a... Can you shop? And now I'll give you some tips for doing that. If you want to strike up a conversation with someone, I'll give you a few different examples. So if you're staying in a hostel and you want to chat to someone, you can go up and just start off by asking a question. It can be anything. Walk up and ask someone what the Wi-Fi password is. If they know the Wi-Fi password, if they say yes, you can be like, oh great, thank you, this is my first day here, and start off a conversation that way. If they say no, then be like, well, I can't figure it out either, this is my first time here. Where are you from? Bang. People love to talk about themselves, so if you can get someone, if you can ask people a question, that's how the conversation will start. You'll often find that when you're solo traveling and other people are solo traveling, they're in the same situation. They'd love to have a chat with someone, they just haven't done it, or they haven't worked up the courage to strike up that conversation. So if you be the first one to do it, it will definitely pay off for you. And then the last one is to go to a bar. So it's always easier to meet people when you've had a couple of drinks in you, you get a bit of Dutch courage. If you're uncomfortable to go to a bar by yourself, have a couple of beers at home first and then head out. I find the best thing to do is to go to a bar that has a pool table. So if you go in and there's a list that you have to write your name on, you can just ask the person playing pool, oh, do you know where I write my name? Is this where you write your name or whatever? And then you've already sort of broken the ice a little bit, and then you'll have someone to play with when it's your turn to play, and you can have a conversation that way. Another thing you can do, which might sound kind of obvious, is to Google what to do in a city by yourself. As an example, if you're coming here to Bangkok, you can Google things to do in Bangkok alone, and a lot of people have come here and they do these things alone and they write blogs about it. So there's always great information available online. So if you haven't done a solo trip before, get out there and do it. I can't recommend it enough. You don't have to worry about anyone else. You can do what you want to do, you can eat what you want to eat, you can be completely selfish if you want, but it's also a great way to meet people and have a really unique experience. The main reason I like to solo travel is I like to meet local people, I like to engage with the country and the culture and get to know the local people, so you can use any of those tips that I just said for striking up conversations with locals as well. And that's when you have the best experiences, I find, solo traveling.